some people file in, I think. But I'll sort of just open by saying hello and welcome. Thank you for joining us today. This is Oblong Books Online. We love to do events. We have lots of great things coming up. If you go to oblongbooks.com, you can see our events calendar. And, we hope you join us for more events. I'm Jennifer Laughran. I am a bookseller at Oblong, and actually I'm also Alex's agent. Oh, so you might hear us being very familiar because we are. A reminder that if you have any questions for our authors, you can type them into the chat or the Q&A at the bottom of your screen, and we'll answer them at the end of our conversation. And we're going to be playing a little game later, so stay tuned for that. And of course, there's going to be lots of time for questions at the end. We're delighted this evening to be celebrating the launch of Alex's new novel, literally right in front of me. Alice Austen lived here. Alex Gino is the author of several books for middle grade readers, including the Stonewall and Lambda award-winning Melissa, which you may have read. And their latest is absolutely brilliant. You will love it. Mike Jung, our co-panelist, is the hilarious author of Boys in the Back Row, which came out last year, Geeks, Girls, and Secret Identities, and Unidentified Suburban Object. Mike is a library professional by day, ukulele player by night, and Mike and Alex are BFFs, so it's sure to be a great conversation. And yes, the game will be very fun, so don't leave. Also, signed copies of Alice Austen Lived Here are available both in stores and through oblongbooks.com, and I'm going to put a link to buy in the chat. Now, I think Mike and Alex, take it away.
All righty, that we will. Thank you so much, Jen. A pleasure to be doing this event with you. We love Jen. Everybody loves Jen. So Alex, congratulations on the new book, and I'm thrilled to be here celebrating it with you, especially since I get to kind of brag about having read it like super early on in the process. So it's possible actually the book has changed since then, probably changed a little bit, but I loved it. I love this book. I honestly think it is my favorite of your books so far. I think there's a lot of ways in which it is your best book so far. And that's saying a lot, because I really love all of your books, and I really find that they are just full of just so much heart and humor and meaning, and some of the best books out there right now. But Alice Austen is phenomenal. So we should talk about the book, right? Like ironically, I have your other books. I've got Rick, love Rick. I've got Jilly P. I love Jilly P. I've got Melissa as well. But I don't have a copy of Alice yet because I pre-ordered it from Oblong. And so I'm very patiently waiting for my autographed copy to arrive because I felt that was the best thing to do, right? Yeah, it's a great book. It's really great. And there's some really resonant themes in here that I thought that we should talk about tonight, right?
Right. Thank you, Mike. If anyone's wondering why I invited Mike to join us for this event, that would be why. I could just watch you talk about my books for 40 minutes. That'd be okay.
I could do that. I'm happy to do that.
Don't do that, because then I would have to talk about your books for 40 minutes and nobody wants to be here for 80 minutes. But no, Mike's books are fantastic because he writes about friendship, and he writes about kids who have heart and who have feelings and who talk to one another. And that's what I do too. Yeah. And not that, there's not, he also does this magical thing where he does action and like things happen in his books, which, but no, this is the book I'm proudest of. This is the book that is the most now, but it's also the most me. And it's the most about community,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
Melissa is one kid and she gets to be herself. That's awesome. But she's one kid. She's the only trans kid in the book. She's the only queer kid in the book, effectively, that we know of. But we don't live alone and we find each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what this book has. And I really love that about it.
Yeah, I really I've been thinking about, like, how would I describe Alice to people in terms of like an elevator pitch, because I'm really bad at that. My elevator pitches for any book are like 120 words long. But some of the themes that I really find so resonant in it that I think you really do explore in a very different way, or just so much more than in your other books, are about community, and not necessarily just present day community, but community on a historical continuum, and the idea of how people's lives intersect in terms of the relationships and the kinds of relationships there are, specifically in terms of a found family, right? Which is such an important and meaningful thing for a lot of historically marginalized communities, and in the queer community. And it's so important. And I don't know how much it's been dealt with in children's literature in the way that it is in Alice, because it's you do it in such a profound way,
Thank you. I'm certainly not the only person
Mhm.
to go there. The
Yeah.
first one that comes to my mind is Lisa Bunker, who wrote Zenobia July, and
Mhm.
that family is very queer.
Yeah.
For a little bit more than an elevator pitch for like, hey, this is a book, I should probably tell you what it's about. I have two main characters, and they are both non-binary. This is the first time that I am publishing non-binary characters, which is a little interesting because I am non-binary, but sometimes it takes a little while to get there. Sam, who is dressed fabulously, by the way, hint, hint. We'll get there. Sam and TJ both live on Staten Island, where I grew up, and they are assigned to come up with someone to propose for a local statue to put up at Borough Hall. And they decide upon Alice Austen. Alice Austen is an early photographer, real live person, and she was a lesbian. She didn't use that language because that's not the language of the time, but she did say she lived the larky lifestyle. And if you look at the pictures of her and her friends, like, they're a bunch of queers. And so it is about chosen family, because there's the building is the same building that I grew up in, and it is the same building. We both grew up with, excuse me, let me say that what I mean to say is that there's all of these queer people in this building. The neighbor downstairs on the first floor is queer. There's a femme and non-binary couple upstairs, and they have a kid, and that's where the chosen family comes in. There's also an interesting piece of it about, and I don't know if it was in the version you read, about friendship versus
Yes.
mentorship.
Yes. Very, very interesting stuff. Yeah.
Because as a kid, you have this adult in your life. Oh, that's my friend. But actually, that's not a peer relationship. It's an important relationship, and definitely with marginalized groups that are not family based. Yeah, having mentors is important, but it's not the same thing as having friends. I completely and totally forgot the question you were going to ask, but I described the book, so that's good.
That was, I think, more or less the question. I really do love that part where Sam and Jess are untangling this knot in terms of what it means to be friends or what it means to be mentors, because there is there is a generational aspect to it. There is an age and position in life sort of aspect to it. But what I think I mean, okay, I could just go on about this for a long time, but I loved, first of all, like the way that it was something that Sam really had to learn, and not an entirely pleasant process for Sam to do that, because sometimes learning complex truths is not entirely pleasant. Because Sam is young, Sam is a kid, and that's part of the difference between, you know, someone who is 11, 12 years old, not really being able to be best friends with someone who is a, you know, a grown ass adult, because there are just some fundamental differences there. But what I love about it is there isn't any sort of diminishment of Sam because of that, because they are learning this, because of course kids learn things, especially important, meaningful things about like their relationships with adults. And the fact that Sam and Jess are chosen family and have a mentor and mentee relationship and are not best friends, it's not presented as lesser, you know, in any way. It's not presented as a diminishment or like a demote, like a step down. And I just love that.
Like, I mean, I think Sam feels that way at first, feels diminished.
Yeah.
But that's part of the work of being the mentor, is saying, no, I'm not diminishing you. I'm respecting you by not acting like I'm your equal. Because there's a power imbalance there. There's a lot going on there. There's information imbalance. I'm going to say, by the way, that this is a relatively casual thing. Mike and I are kind of cash, and it's a small-ish group, so we can sort of keep track of the chat for now. Don't worry, Mike. They're recording it, and everyone's going to watch it tomorrow with their coffee. I'm not worried.
I'm not worried either.
But there was a question which I'm going to go ahead and answer, which is, so the kids in the book have to do a book about a local hero, have to do a project about a local hero, and they find out about Alice Austen. But how did I find out about Alice Austen? And that is my agent doing a very good job of asking me to point out what's cool about the book. So I grew up on Staten Island, and I knew about Alice Austen. She is a local historical figure. There's a ferry named after her. So we know about Alice Austen growing up. I did. Staten Islanders knew about her. But I had no idea that she was queer till I was in college, and I'm doing my local, I'm doing my own personal catch-up history work that wasn't shown to me in schools and things. And so I was reading, some sort of lesbian history book, and came across Alice Austen's name and did a big, what the F? There's this person who I know of as a local historical figure is queer. Got her biography, same book that Sam gets, reading along. 141 St. Mark's Place. That's the building I grew up in. There were queers in that building before me. And thinking back on it, the upstairs neighbors were two women, and they had dogs, and one of them was a weightlifter. And not to completely and totally stereotype, but I did ask my mom, who is here, as an adult, were they queer? And I believe the answer was, yeah. And it's not like it had been hidden from me, but it also hadn't been told to me. So my assumption was that everyone was heterosexual, because that was what the assumption was. And so it's really awesome to know that there were queers there. And so basically, long story short, it's my own, if I could write my own life story as if I wish it had been, fan fiction of my own life sort of thing.
Yeah, and the funny thing is that I know these things about you, but because we've talked about them, and so that it was just wonderful to have that extra layer of meaning there while I was reading the book. I do also like sort of Sam's awakenings to things, Sam learning things, finding things out for the first time. on a sort of a very general level, I think that's just so true to life for someone who's a child, but also specifically in this way that you and I have talked about in the past, in terms of, like queer kids need to know that they have elders, and that there are preceding generations, and that they are not actually the first ones to go through the struggles that they're going through, or to know the things that they're knowing. I love that Sam lives in this building where it is a multi-generational building. It's not just Sam and like the one older adult. There's Sam, but there's also Jess and Val, and then there's also a Leslie. So I know that, speaking for myself as like, as the cishet male who has actually been really deeply ignorant about the queer community for so much of my life, and it's only really been able to start education, been educating myself for a relatively short number of years. I have always tended to think like intergenerational in terms of family, as in terms of, blood relatives, or family through marriage, or family through adoption, as opposed to through chosen family. And so there's a way in which that sort of ingrained thinking is still in my mind, And so reading this book where I was like, chosen family, multi-generations of chosen family in the same building. And it's just this thing that just kind of lights you up inside to read, It's just there's this incredible sort of feeling of warmth reading about that.
Thank you. And this is where we totally go off boom, because it's the two of us. Because what I think about, and feel free to be like, I don't want to talk about any of this, but we often talk about, not that communities can easily be compared and everything is different, but we've talked about parallels between queer and trans communities and neurodivergent and autistic communities.
Yeah, we have.
And how that's also something that is not completely within families. And that's also something that now I'm curious about. What does intergenerational mentorship look like within autistic communities? Is it happening? Can it happen? How does it happen? This has nothing to do with the book, but it fascinates me.
Yeah, we've talked about that quite a lot, and it does happen. It is happening. It has happened. It's happening for me currently in my personal life. It's happening for the autistic kids in my life. And like it's a thing that arrived late in life for me. It's a thing that's arriving much earlier in life for like the autistic kids that I love. And
very similar to queerness.
There are a lot of similarities. There are a lot of parallels in that way. And we, like, just a little secret for all of you is like, one of the reasons that Alex and I have talked about this stuff in so much detail is because we have like spent a fair amount of time like really delving into the thought and the process of collaborating on a book at some point. And we've done some writing together, and we are going to continue to do that at some point. And eventually, the plan is that there will be an Alex Gino and Mike Jung book out there in the world. But
with a better plot than the first one was, because it turns out that you can have two really good minds writing these really fascinating characters, and your plot can still be extremely deeply flawed. It has to be taken down and burned to the ground.
Yes, we had a
long live Neuroqueer Dune.
Yes, rest in peace, Neuroqueer Dune. We had a fatal flaw in our book, which was working title Neuroqueer Dune, but we talked it was so much about these same concepts, the concepts of chosen family, the concepts of why do I not know who my elders were? Why do I not know the history? Why were we not taught this? Why did my family not talk to me about this? Why was I not, clued in to actually find it myself? And then when it started to happen, what is that process like? That process of coming awake to all these like horizons of information and history that you did not know about before.
Right. And like you said, relatives who are disappeared, relatives who are not spoken about, relatives who are institutionalized, relatives who are not considered part of the family. If people are wondering, the problem is that we wanted to take these people and bring them to Neuroqueer Dune where they could be happy, but actually taking people out of their culture is not the answer. So we're still working on that one.
Yeah, we are still working on that. But
speaking of Alice, you should ask me about my outfit.
Yes, tell us about your outfit, which is fabulous, very apropos for the occasion.
Okay.
Spot on, perfect, really.
So Sam, my main character, loves Joe and Pat's Pizza. I am in fact a second generation Joe and Pat's Pizza eater on both sides. I am 100%. I'm not any kind of like hybrid. Joe and Pat's. Been eating them since they've been making them. Established 1960. That's a Joe and Pat shirt. I got a Joe and Pat shirt, but that's not all. This is the only time that there's my mom in this chat. Joe and Pat's forever. Apparently a long distant relative on my dad's side. Pat. This is the only event that I've done virtually that I am wearing shoes at, and I would like to tell you why. First of all, Mike, would you hold up the? Oh no, you can't. No,
I can't. No,
Okay.
I've got it as a Google Doc.
Pay attention. Okay. Jen's gonna have to do something if she's gonna use this on any kind of audio thing ever, but
There are the shoes.
there are the shoes, there are the pants. Come on, there we go, there are the pants.
They're the pants, and there are
Hey.
some, for all you audio listeners out there, some very beautiful sky blue pants with rainbows and clouds, and then a very bright red pair of high top Chucky tees. Very fabulous, extremely fabulous outfit.
Matching my character.
Matching the
Cosplay of my own character.
It's a Sam cosplay, and it's perfect. It's perfect.
It's perfect. I do feel very cool. I do feel like a style icon.
Mm-hmm. And I do really enjoy the style aspect, I have to say, the fashion aspect throughout the book as well, because Sam and TJ, they have such different approaches to it, like really very disparate. Like TJ has a much, I don't know if I would call it more sophisticated or whatnot, but in some ways like fancier. They have a fancier sort of fashion sense.
They enjoy
yes.
being fancy.
Yes.
They enjoy being fancy. For them, fancy is a way to show their gender. Fancy is a way to express themselves.
Yeah.
For Sam, fancy is binary. The clothes are either girly or boy.
Mm-hmm.
And also as a frat person, fancy is buttons. Fancy is awkward. Fancy is belts. Fancy is stuff not fitting.
Mm-hmm.
Sam is very much a t-shirts and leggings kind of person, whereas TJ wants a button down. And that they're just different people. Look at that.
Yeah.
Different queers being different.
Yeah. And the thing about them is that they both, again, they are best friends, and they mesh with each other by accepting the fact that they are going to work together to find outfit combinations that work for things like their final project presentation, and for the big competition, the climactic scene in the book near the end. And they collaborate very much. Like TJ is very good about approaching Sam's wardrobe in a very accepting way and looking for things, that combinations that are going to work with their own, again, more fancy and dressed up sort of style. I felt very in sync with Sam when they talked about, like, my criteria for an outfit really are, is it comfortable? Does it cover my stomach when I raise my arms in the air? And do I like the colors, etc.? It's like I've always been much more of a Sam sort of fashion person than a TJ fashion person.
It's a little hard to like care about fashion. I don't know. But actually it's easier to care about, like, to say, oh, that would look pretty on someone else to wear, but to not actually have to do it myself. Because I get thumps on my buttons, like they don't sit right, and then I'll get a stain on it, and a black t-shirt is harder to stain, and for sure.
Yeah. And I know for me, there's a certain amount of decision fatigue also with choosing clothes. And so sometimes I have a stable of clothes which are fairly similar, and I
Right.
will often wear the same kind of outfit, but
because they're friends and because they communicate, TJ is like, we are doing a performance, which means we will look nice. Okay, Sam, what are you willing to wear?
yes,
I will match you.
and they it's yeah, that's that kind of segues into another thought that I was having about the book, where it's you know, they are fully accepting of each other. Like the characters work so hard to accept and embrace each other, you know, and at the same time they also are very direct and honest with each other in a way that I think is just beautifully represented. Like there are scenes between, for example, Sam and Jess, or Sam and TJ, or you know, pick any couple of characters where if one of the characters is, you know, objects to something that the other character has said, they'll say so. They will actually not hide it. They will not pretend it's okay. They will be direct and honest about it. And the two friends will confront it in the moment and discuss it in the moment. And it doesn't become like a festering wound or something if someone says something that's, you know, offensive or thoughtless, or, you know, unintentionally or not cruel. That they're allowed to actually be fully themselves. They're not sugarcoating themselves, you know, the way that they present to each other. And I just found that great. And again, something that I feel like you represent in this book in a way that I don't always see in every other.
Thank you for saying that. And I love that you see that from that angle, because where I see it from is I'm an activist as well as a writer. And I see lots of writers write things that, yeah, characters are hurtful to each other. And then on the next page, somebody apologizes and therefore it's okay.
Yeah, right.
And because someone's trying to get to the next plot point, someone's trying to get the book finished. And that's true in all of media, right? Like the plot reigns supreme.
Right.
And we're writing for kids. We're writing for young people. And if I'm gonna put something crappy on the page, I want to question it. I don't want it to just sit there as icky and then the reader goes, oh, that's part of how people act in the world. I'd rather them read, oh, when someone acts that way to me, I have the right to respond, and here's some ways that it could look. Yeah. I mean, probably not the first book, but this could be one of the first 20 books that a kid finishes. You know, they don't have years and years and years of history. So it's just that much. It's that much different. Yeah,
and it's not a thing where necessarily like something is said or happens and the characters confront it and that it's done, it's wrapped up and it never happens again. Like, you know, there are ongoing little points of tension between characters that occur throughout their relationship, because also that is what being in relationship with other people is like, when, you know, whatever the kind of relationship it is. And so that's like a sort of a fascinating and I think true to life sort of note of realism that I really appreciated you putting in there, because it's a little complex to represent honestly and truly. And it'd be tempting to just not bother, you know, but you bothered because that's what you do, Alex. That's what you do.
It's not tempting.
I should say, for me, I personally find it tempting to just, you know, not do that.
Well, but I'm the same person that put out a book and the title was wrong and I fought for 7 years till it changed. I'm not like trying to tout myself. I'm just stubborn and I'm not comfortable with things not being right.
And I appreciate that about you very much. It shows, you know, I know that very much from the fact that we are friends, and it shows in our relationship with each other, but it really shows in your work, you know, and it's just such a meaningful thing. And I think it's something that even if young readers aren't necessarily going to, you know, consciously recognize it, because, you know, I don't think your typical 10, 11, 12-year-old reader is going to say, oh, yes, look at the way that Alex here has decided to, you know, break down the interpersonal dynamics and present that there's this ongoing sort of degree of tension and this point of contention between them, which, like, they're not going to do that, but they'll recognize the honesty of it, you know, subconsciously, if nothing else.
Right. And it's funny, I do sometimes, I shouldn't, but I look at, don't tell my agent, but I do look sometimes at reviews and what people say. And it's funny when adults think that the dialogue isn't realistic. Because that
Yeah.
might not be how the kids talk.
Right.
But I've been to middle school GSAs and I've been places and they do have conversations and they do talk about what words mean and they want to know these things and they can get very oh, your writing is so didactic, you're like teaching all these things. They're teaching each other all these things. Yes.
Yes.
That's happening.
Yeah. And they are talking about them. And, I have permission from our oldest to disclose that they are non-binary and super queer and have announced it to the world at various points. Once was by writing gay across their forehead in Sharpie in letters approximately this tall.
Sharpie, it lasted, didn't it?
It lasted for a while. Yeah.
How long was a while? I gotta know.
It was a few weeks, I think a few weeks.
I've been outgayed. I've never done that.
And it was unmistakable. And that's another thing that I feel like is so memorable and resonant about your work and this book in particular, is that these conversations are very familiar and very realistic. Like they happen in my own household, within my own family. They happen in my circles. They happen amongst my children and their friends. So the fact that there are adults out there who have I've never heard kids talking about that. It's like, guess what? Adults don't hear a lot of conversations that kids have. And these conversations, the fact that you haven't heard them doesn't mean they don't exist, because they are happening. Exactly like you said, Alex, they are happening. And
it doesn't even necessarily mean they're happening with different kids. They're just not saying them in front of you.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And that's as it should be, because kids get to have their privacy too. They get to have the conversations that they have between themselves. They don't have to tell the adults in their lives everything. They don't really have to tell them anything. I mean, it's nice when they tell us, some of the important stuff, but it's important for them to be able to have these conversations themselves, because that's one of the ways in which kids really work these things out and come to understand these things.
Yeah. I want to talk with you all day.
Yes, I know. You live all the way over there.
If we do that, I think maybe we should think about moving into the game. Yes.
The game, yeah, right. We're a little late for that. So we should start the game. So we have this game. Alex, do you want to tell the people about the game, or Jen, are you going to tell the people about the game?
I can tell the people about the game, I think. So the game is called Bad Book Descriptions. I have compiled, with some help, what it says on the tin, some bad book descriptions. I'm going to give you, for example, when I say the bad book description, to Alex and Mike will have to figure them out. So for example, a bunch of randos go on a road trip to destroy some costume jewelry. Lord of the Rings. Okay, that's my example. Obviously. So are you two ready for the game?
I hope so.
Start easy. Let's start easy.
We are. Shout out to Alex's mom for accepting all the contest entries, by the way.
Yes, Alex's mom gave me a list. I added to it, and I also mixed some stuff up. So hopefully,
yes, Ali, you get to play in the chat. I think we're going to guess without looking at the chat.
Yes,
but I don't see why people
don't look at the chat. Don't look at the chat.
Closing down the chat while we play the game.
Close in the chat. Close in the chat.
Okay, are we ready?
Ready.
Chatty Arachnid gives unasked for pep talks.
Dude, that's Charlotte's Web.
Charlotte's Web.
Yeah, that was an easy. I told you it's going to start easy.
That was an easy one.
But I love it.
All right. What's it? Chatty Arachnid gives unasked for pep talks.
Unasked for pep talks. That's excellent. That's like the kind of level of sarcasm and that we want. Yes.
All right.
Mark.
Ghosts give a rich dude free therapy.
Christmas Carol.
Yes.
Right?
Might be. Oh, should I be keeping track of the score? Yes, I will.
I don't think it's about the score.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't
know. But isn't it? Maybe it's about the score. Okay.
Is it between us versus each other, or is it us versus the chat?
That's
I think it's us, you two versus each other.
Oh,
Because the
oh,
chat is
crap.
not
All right.
playing. The chat is not fast
I'd
enough.
rather have it be us versus the chat because
Well,
we got some smart people in the chat. Let's
But
We
then
might
the
also
chat will
need each
actually
other
have
to
to
figure it
play.
out.
Because they aren't right now. Okay, anyway, next.
you're playing chat. You're competing, people in the chat. Allie Jane Bruce, you're competing.
Yeah.
All right. Pilgrims are misogynistic jerks.
Yes.
It's a statement of fact, but it's also a bad book description.
Is it like?
Pilgrims are misogynistic jerks.
Somebody in the chat got it.
We're not doing like nonfiction.
Is it like The Crucible?
It's like The Crucible.
Oh crap! The thing came up. It's a Scarlet Letter.
Scarlet Letter. Okay,
It
right,
is.
But
okay.
chat
But
shows.
neither
but
of you
chat
got that. Sorry.
like
the
that.
chat got
Yeah,
that
we'll
one.
make sure not to look at it.
Okay, so we're just chat one.
Wait, I did not realize the Scarlet Letter was Puritans.
Yeah,
I thought it was later than that.
it's a bad book description, okay? I didn't say it was a great book. They got it anyway.
All right. Yeah, the chat got it.
But
So
The Crucible is actually more accurate, isn't it? I want partial credit.
Maybe you can get a half a point. Okay. Tween boys play some weird games on an island.
Oh, Lord of the Flies.
Lord of the Flies.
Yes. Alex gets that one.
Allie.
This is a hard one, maybe.
Oh.
Okay.
Criminal siblings rifle through antiquities for kicks.
Criminal siblings.
That is a hard one.
Criminal siblings.
Mm-hmm.
Rifle through.
Antiquities for kicks.
Mm.
Oh, it sounds good.
Oh.
Takes place in a
Criminal-
museum.
It's not the mixed up files. Those are,
It is.
is it?
It is
Yes.
really.
They're
They're-
criminals. They broke into that museum. They can't sleep there. Okay.
All right. Technically criminal.
I was so okay, got it. I was so
I mean,
close on
look, you
criminals.
got it.
Got it.
Gotta give a hint, but hey.
That's a good one.
All right. Creepy factory owner has 0 workplace safety protocols in place and an unusual succession plan.
Charlie,
Willy
Charlie.
Wonka. Yeah,
No, Willy
I will
Wonka is
say-
the movie. Charlie and the
that's true.
Chocolate
Charlie
Factory.
and the Chocolate
Oh,
Factory.
Allie got it faster than you two, but that was very
Yeah, well, I was letting you finish.
okay.
Also, Allie is very
Okay.
smart.
Red-haired liar corrupts innocent children with tall tales.
Red-haired liar.
The pressure is getting to me. I'm not guessing any of these.
I know.
Red-
I thought we were gonna get to like work these out with each other. Crap.
Yeah, you could try. Look,
Redhead.
I mean, Pippi Longstocking.
Red-haired
was
Pippi
liar.
Longstocking
and
is
a
red.
liar.
Redhead.
red-haired liar corrupts innocent children with tall tales.
I mean, that does sound like Pippi Longstocking, but I'm not.
It is.
Is it?
Oh, it is.
Is it?
Oh, all right.
Did Ellen Jane get it?
Alex? No.
Allie did not get.
I beat Ellen Jane. I beat Ellen
Well,
Jane.
you're winning. I'll tell you that much. Okay.
You got to step up your game, people in the chat. Come on, bring it. Bring it.
There's some really good ones. Family picks up Harry Drifter at a railway station and invites him to watch their children.
Paddington.
Yes.
Oh,
Cheryl got it in the chat too at the same time, but I'll give you a point out. Okay.
I love this game. I'm so glad we're playing.
Gangly man wears the same striped outfit every day and avoids detection.
Waldo. Where's Waldo?
Yes.
Right.
Mike.
Oh my God, that's so good.
He is very gangly. I think that's like an underestimated
I mean,
sort of part of Waldo's.
Whoever did that, that's somewhat my favorite so far.
Gangly AF. Yeah.
Frizzy-haired dork gets a job in another country and a makeover.
Job in another country.
It's a glitzy job in another country.
A glitzy job
Glitzy job in another
and a
country.
makeover.
Frizzy hair. There's so many frizzy haired dorks in books.
I know.
And so many makeovers.
Somebody in the chat got it.
Frizzy
Princess
hair.
Diaries. It's
Or-
Princess Diaries.
Oh, I don't know that.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Well.
That's I
Oh,
don't.
Princess Diaries. I've
Mike,
only
did
seen
you
the
know
movie.
it?
No,
no.
no, yeah.
No,
I saw the movie, right? And it's Anne Hathaway, and she's not a frizzy head dork. I'm you know, even if they
Well,
try to present her that.
it's a book too.
Yeah.
Okay, this one, you probably are more familiar with the movie. Boy crazy swimmer signs unenforceable contract.
Boy crazy.
With all the boys I've loved before. No. No, she's not a
Boy
swimmer.
crazy swimmer.
I see the hot tub scene in my head. Or something. And I was like, oh, she's a swimmer. That's it.
Boy crazy swimmer
signs unenforceable contract.
Signs
unenforceable
swimmer.
Contract. Little Mermaid.
Yes.
Oh.
Thank you. Helen got it too, but we'll give you the point, Alex.
Good job, Helen.
Okay, should I find one more? Let's. I feel like we did so many.
We did so many.
Let's do them all. This is fun.
I'm
really bad at it, but it's still fun.
I was sort of picking, and so now I can't figure out which ones I did already. Okay, three children and their weird neighbor go to space.
3 children and their weird neighbor go to space.
Space. Is it like Zathura?
What?
No.
The
picture book.
It sounds vague. It sounds vaguely like Peter Pan, but that's not it. It's not space.
No, Peter Pan doesn't go to space.
I know, but I'm trying.
Okay, well, the chat has it. It's Wrinkle in Time.
Oh, Wrinkle in Time.
Yes.
They do go to space.
Fair.
And I think
Alex gonna win.
I have one. It's a little saucy. And again, you're probably more familiar with the movie.
Let's have it.
Random guy kisses comatose girl while her voyeuristic roommates watch.
Oh, that's Snow White.
Yes.
Mhm.
Allie got it at the exact same moment as you. All right,
That's-
well, I'm afraid.
Would you read that one again? Because I liked that one.
Okay, that was random guy kisses comatose girl while her voyeuristic roommates watch.
That's what that is.
It's
Not
an
very
accurate.
cool.
It's a very
There are
accurate
so
description.
many Disney movies where unconscious women get kissed. You
Maybe this should
cannot.
actually be highly accurate book descriptions.
Right. Honest book descriptions, right?
Yes, honest
Yeah.
book descriptions.
Yeah.
So, Alex, you won. Congratulations. Good pub day omen.
Thank you very much. I do
And-
appreciate it.
We do have a few minutes for questions. If people in the chat have questions, I have a couple questions, but
Yeah, it
I
did happen
want
with
to make
CBD
sure that
too.
the people in the queue have it. So
Thank you for playing, by the way, Mike. Good game.
Yes, good game, Alex.
And audience, good game.
well played.
I'm impressed. I beat Allie because she was doing good.
Yeah.
Well, Allie did great, but you won. Okay. So my first
You're,
question.
Because
she's
you're awesome,
also my
Alex.
agent. You gotta wonder.
Maybe the fix was in. I can't anyway. So my question is, was there anything you found out while doing the research for the book or writing the book that you didn't know or didn't expect? Like that surprised you maybe?
Are you asking that because you remember the surprise?
No?
Oh, there was a surprise.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean,
Maybe I
don't believe
do.
it's in the
Maybe I
version that you read,
subconsciously
Mike.
remember it.
We had a whole phone conversation after you discovered the surprise. I remember that.
So I'm writing this book about Alice Austen, who was an early photographer. So she was someone who was pretty well off until the last years of her life. White citizen, so she's someone with some clout and whatnot. And doing this book about her and feeling all very good about it. And in the last chapter, I needed to have some other people that the other contestants entered instead of Alice Austen. And some of them were easy, like Mr. Outerbridge, who built the Outer Bridge. It is actually called the Outer Bridge Crossing on Staten Island because I swear to you, his name was Outerbridge, and it's the outer bridge. It's the one all the way, far away. And
His
so
name
that was fine, right? Like
Eugenius Outerbridge, if I remember correctly. Like like a fabulous first and last name
You have a
combination.
ridiculous memory. But so like I can have that person lose, no problem. Well, it turns out that Audre Lorde lived on Staten Island for about 10 years.
A significant figure.
During the time that she wrote some of her most well-known essays, like about the master's tools will never dismantle the master's house. She was on Staten Island while she wrote all of that. And so here I am with a completely and totally nearly finished book and very important information about this amazing, powerful lesbian of color who did all this stuff. And I have the white lady winning. And that was sort of awkward and that was sort of complex. Do I just not include her? Well, that's some whitewashing I'm not willing to engage in. And Mike absolutely helped me out. We talked about this, and Alice Austen is a Staten Islander. She was born on Staten Island. She died on Staten Island. She is connected with Staten Island. Audre Lorde is not. I didn't know she was on Staten Island. So the solution that I decided, oh, that'd be a spoiler. I guess
Kind of
you'll
a
have to read the
spoiler.
book.
There is a solution, though.
Yes. It's
Yes.
an elegant solution.
It's an elegant solution. Yeah.
An elegant solution, I hope.
Yes.
Yeah.
Alex and actually Mike, both of you, do you guys have writing routines? Like, are there things you have to do to write? Or special times of day you write? Or weird music you listen to while you write? Or whatever?
Do you want to go first, Alex?
Sure. I do my best writing when no one else is in the house. I don't like that someone could knock on the door. Not that they have, but they could. It's too much for me. I do not listen to music while I write. And I think probably my it's not actually a routine, but it's something that Mike and I talk a lot about is how I write, which is that I don't write in order. And I don't mean that I write different scenes in a different order than they end up, but I really mean I will hear a line of dialogue or I will know a line of description and I will just write that in. And then I'll write what's happening over here and I'll write to continue the dialogue and I'll be bouncing around on the page. So I'm really not writing it as it happens. I'm writing it as I see it, because different things become visual at different points. I think it's weird, but I like it.
And my process it constantly changes, although it has been very influenced by Alex over recent years. When we were working on Neuroqueer Dune, the book which will be reborn as something entirely different at some point in the future, I would go over to Alex's apartment and we would sit at the table and eat cookies and drink tea and just hash out our thoughts about like writing this book. And it was immensely fun, but I also got like this very sort of in-depth look at like Alex's process. Yes.
You might have drank tea. I drank coffee.
That's true. I drank coffee sometimes, but mostly I drank tea because I was doing this kind of transition. But yes, that's true. Alex did not ever drink tea. It was always coffee. But I picked up on that nonlinear writing thing, which I had sort of done before, but it had always been kind of aimless. And another thing that I picked up from Alex in recent years is the idea of just like, and any chunk of writing you do is good. Any chunk, no matter how small, no matter how brief the amount of time, no matter how few or many words it is getting you farther to your ultimate goal. And that's really helpful because there are plenty of days where I write between 25 and 200 words, and that's it. I might write a single sentence in a day. I might write a paragraph. I'll go days on end without writing anything, of course. And because I'm a children's author and I work in libraries and I live in the San Francisco Bay Area, I live in a home that's the size of, your average toaster oven. And so it's like, I'm not really ever home alone here because I live here with my family and they get to live here too. So I have to be adaptable in terms of where I write. Like I do a fair amount of writing in the car, which I mentioned when we were gabbing before this event began. I take lunch hours. I sometimes stay up a little bit late. I do have some set hours on the weekends. I do have a writing group where we try to meet, at an available hour on Tuesdays. It's sometimes hard just because, again, all of us have lives and whatnot. But yeah, I fit it in where I can. And it's chaos that hopefully eventually, coalesces into something coherent. Like, I'm not there with the thing I'm writing right now, but hopefully I will be eventually.
Cool. Helen has a question for Alex. When you do an author visit with students, what stands out for you about their response to reading novels about queer characters?
I have a fair amount of jealousy. I mean, certainly kids have to deal with lots of stuff that I didn't, and the world is on fire, and social media and all of these things are complicated. And to them, it is part of the normal world to have books that have queer characters in them. They are not as surprised by it as we as adults are, or even as teens are. The younger you are, the more they're simply the younger you encounter something, the more it is in your understanding of baseline what's in the world, as opposed to what got added in later. So they love it because there's plenty of books that don't have it, and they love being seen, and they love when they talk, and they love all of that when they start talking about what words mean and language and definitions. But they're not surprised that it happens.
Yeah, I will say, like, just from my experience in the bookstore and talking to people about Melissa when it first came out in, however many years ago, how many years ago? 7 years ago? Oh my gosh. Kids immediately understand the situation. They are not fussed or bothered. It's the adults that are the ones who are always like, wait, what? Like, kids are 100% on board. And I love that for them. And as a matter of fact, because it's been so long now, I met a young trans person who is turning 9 the other day, and their family had never heard of Melissa because how could they have? They weren't old enough yet. But it's now being introduced to the next generation of young kids. So I think that's super cool.
Yay!
It's awesome.
Do you both have any tips for people who want to be writers themselves, like middle grade writers themselves?
Oh, read a lot of middle grade books. Start reading them and just keep reading them. I think it's so personal and so individual, to everybody. Everybody's got to develop their unique process, but like, start reading middle grade books and start writing, like, just start throwing some words on the page. And those are the two most important things. And then, I don't know, Alex will be more helpful to you right now.
No, Mike hit the first and probably more important part, which is read a whole lot. And then the other one is write a whole lot. You don't have to write every day, but do not wait to know the beginning of the story to start writing, because you won't know that it's the beginning of the story until you've finished it. And quite likely it's not. By the time you get to the end, you're going to have to redo the beginning now that you know what's going on in the story. So just start writing. Don't fix it. I mean, I say that I fix things, but also I've done these a number of times now, and I know what I'm fixing a little better. The first time that I wrote it, I just tried to get to the end, and then I had to edit it. I had to get to the end again, and I had to get to the end again. And it's like Mike said earlier, if you have 100 pages, 100 words on the page that you didn't have yesterday, you are closer to the end than you were yesterday.
Yep. I fall into that trap of trying to write the beginning, like the proper beginning of the book. And it's a constant battle to resist that impulse to like try and fixate on that, because really, if you are writing scenes, if you are writing passages, if you're writing pieces of dialogue, and you can start to assemble them at some point later, then you're getting the job done. And just because you write a scene and it ends up not being the first one in the book doesn't mean it's not going to be in the book, It also doesn't mean that it will be in the book, so get used to that idea as well. But
oh my God, kill your darlings. And that doesn't mean it was wasted time, because
right.
I for years said, oh, I don't do character maps. I don't do that stuff. No, I just read a whole bunch of scenes that I end up not using, and that's how I learned my characters. Same thing, just with
Well, and-
more, adjectives and crap.
The genesis of Sam's character was in a short story, right? Like
It
So-
was, yeah.
you are dabbling around doing different things, and there a book and character are born. So we do have time for like one more question, and Allie has given us a very intense question.
Ah, yes.
So you might have to think of something funny to end this on after we finish this question. So in this current climate, Alex, have you dealt with a spike in challenges, censorship? And also, do you have any comments or perhaps strong words about that subject? Or maybe something like what readers and book lovers, like the people in this audience, can potentially do to help?
Thanks, Allie Jane.
It's a
Fun.
can
We
of
love you,
worms.
Allie.
It is it is scary, and it is terrible, and it is tragic, and it is horrible. I very much try to focus on calling it challenges, not bans, in terms of practical what you can do. A ban is a thing that has happened. A challenge is an appeal process that someone is trying to engage in. If you are involved with the library, the most clear thing you can do is have a process that is followed. When there is a process, and I'm telling you this like you don't know this, Ellie Jane, but when there is a process, that means that that you are a librarian doing your job. When when there is no process, that's when the librarian can go down with the ship. And then suddenly the book disappears, whether or not the challenge fails. What I will say is that ebb and flow, and probably the thing that is most hopeful to me about all of this, which is not a hopeful moment, but my book was challenged 0 times 15 years ago. Books with transgender characters in them, see what I'm doing? For kids, were challenged 0 times 15 years ago, because we couldn't imagine that book existing, and we couldn't imagine that book being published. So the only reason a book can be challenged is because it exists. So yay, we keep writing them, we keep doing more, and yeah, they're pushing because they're scrambling because there's more coming.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yep.
there are. Thank you both
Yep.
so much. And thank you to everyone who participated and played our little game. We had a great time talking about Alice Austen Lived Here. A reminder that this book and all of Alex's books are available signed at Oblong Books and at oblongbooks.com, which I'm going to put another link to. Hopefully I can do that right now. Before we close, I'd like to also extend our thanks to Talon Salvati and Nikki Much at Scholastic for helping make this happen. And thank you so much to all of us for joining us, all of you for joining us. And thank you, Mike, for being such a great interlocutor.
Super fan? I think like
Super fan.
is the best thing about it.
And
Conversation
thank
with
you,
a super
Alex,
fan,
and
right.
congratulations. Yay.
Congratulations, Alex. Yay.
Thank you, Oblong, because you're amazing. Thank you, Jen. Thank you,
Thank
Helen.
you so much,
Thank
Jen.
you.
We love you, Jen.
You're so
You're
good.
awesome.
You're so good. People ask how I found my agent, and I was very, 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 very lucky. I wrote an email, and she said she wanted to see more, and it's been all great since then. Thank you, Mike. I love you. I love you.
I love you too,
I'm
Alex.
going to be at Oblong tomorrow morning, so if you buy a book, I'll sign it in the morning. And I just saw that Aida showed up here, so I'd love to see you here.
Hi, Ida. And as long as you're there, you should just buy them all. Buy all of Alex's books.
And
Sure.
Mike's too. If you want, I'll sign those too.
Yeah. I give Alex license to sign my books at Oblong. That's only fair, right?
All right, I'm going to close this. Bye, everyone.
Bye.